represents companies going public from Asia. My background is I've helped companies go public for the last 40 years from around the world. I've spent my last 25 years in Asia, and I'm honored to be here today and be a moderator between the two exchanges. I'd be negligent if I didn't begin with thanking Vinny and Golden Gate Ventures for hosting this, and the government officials, and all the sponsors that made this happen. I've designed questions today to be able to give the private companies here insight into what it takes to get listed on the exchanges. To begin, I'd be humbled to introduce you, so why don't you each introduce yourselves during your start?
Sure. Thanks, Shiv. My name is Hiren Krishnani. I lead the capital markets business for NASDAQ based in Singapore, covering Southeast Asia region. I've been with the company for 8 years and successfully executed many IPOs, not as much as Drew, I must say. He's a legend and a veteran in this industry. But happy to share my thoughts today, and thank you for the organizers for having us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me here. And I'm Kazuki Yoshimoto, General Manager and Chief President of the Tokyo Stock Exchange Singapore. I have two missions. First one is inviting potential investment flow from the global institutional investors to the Japanese capital markets. And the second one is inviting potential IPO companies. And in that area, I'm focusing on ASEAN area, especially Vietnam and Singapore and so on. And thank you very much.
Thank you. What I hope to accomplish today on my panel is to give you insight into what it takes to get listed on these exchanges. And I've designed my questions to cover a few different areas. So I hope that you find this panel very informative today. To begin with, gentlemen, I guess the most obvious question, what does it take for a Vietnamese company to get listed on your exchanges? And I guess with that, are there any particular sectors that you're paying attention to right now? Let's start there.
Sure, I can go first. So the very first clear benefit for a Vietnamese company or even any company in Southeast Asia to list on NASDAQ is valuation and liquidity. And we are clearly the biggest and the deepest capital markets in the world. Now, NASDAQ listing also brings other benefits such as global branding, regulatory gold standard, ease of raising secondaries, be it M&A currency, employee share plan, largest universe of peers, largest universe of analysts, the list goes on. Having said that, I would like to say a quote from our CEO, Adina Friedman. And she says that every company belongs or should believe in the local market. But there are few companies out there who choose to list outside for whatever reason. We then believe that NASDAQ is the right market for them because of our life cycle solutions, focus on branding, corporate governance, and investor relations. Now, at this point, I would like to highlight a few stats for this year. What we've noticed in 2025, we've executed about 81 IPOs year to date, raising a total of $8.8 billion with an 84% win rate of IPOs on US exchanges. But what is interesting here is, Drew, is there are about 200 F1 and S1 filings currently on NASDAQ, which are waiting to go out in the next 6 to 12 months. And this is really an optimistic figure. While with all of the volatility in the last 6 weeks, this is kind of a very optimistic number that we're looking at, which also means that when the floodgates open, we will see a lot of IPOs going out the door. Now, we expect that to happen in later part of 2025. That's the prediction at the moment. We expect a pickup with growth-oriented companies coming to market, VC-backed tech companies, and if those companies trade well, the momentum will pick up later in 2026.
Yeah, as you know, in 2023, Japanese market has made a very good market performance in the past. And at this moment, we have a lot of new investors from global institutional investors to the Japanese market. And also, that strong momentum will bring a very positive impact into the primary market. so that in Tokyo, the Tokyo Stock Exchange can provide a very good valuation and market liquidity backed by the institutional investors and retail investors. Of course, and also if we are looking at a sector, at this moment in Japan, most of the listed companies are facing lack of human resources because we have changed the social changing structure of Japanese society and a business environment in Japan. And right now, most of the listed companies are looking for a business partner in foreign countries, in foreign business. And especially looking at our business market, there are so many companies who have a business relationship with Japanese companies and also system integrator, system engineer who can speak in Japanese and English and so on. So that in Vietnam, there are a lot of business opportunity to make a cross-border business with a Japanese listed company. And it's possible to make a cross-border business with a Japanese listed company. It is very much harder, it is easier to get a successful IPO in the Japanese market.
Gentlemen, since there's only two of you, my questions are open to both of you. So I'm not going to point to one of you, just both jump in. Both of you have met with lots of Vietnamese founders. What are some of the common misconceptions that they have about accessing the capital markets?
I could go first. So I think it's just not Vietnamese founders in general, but any foreign private issuers in Asia. Many of them look at IPO as an end goal, but in reality, it's really the start of the journey. And it's not an easy one. Doing an IPO and executing and being a successfully public listed company is no easy task. And this is coming from NASDAQ, which is absolutely true. So what issuers can do is they need to plan for a robust investor engagement strategy before their IPO. And one of the recommendations we provide to companies is start thinking and behaving like a public listed company much before you're public, which also means start to build your internal controls, form a core IPO team, plan your corporate governance, and start reporting on the quarterly basis. So once you go public, it comes as a natural habit. Because when market expects you to report on quarterly basis, you do need to report it, as opposed to being a private company gives you a lot of leeway in that sense. The first 2 quarters are extremely crucial for a newly listed company. That's the initial trust that you build with the investors. It's very difficult to build that trust back if you don't trade well in the first 2 quarters. And again, and the most important thing is as the stock goes up, so let's say you start at $5, the stock goes to $10, you will start to have to look for new investors at every level. So it's a never-ending process, it's a struggle, it's a lot of hard work in terms of investor engagement to put your stock price up and consistently get those investors.
Guys? Yes, I'm agree with you. And to have a successful IPO, it's very important to make an integrity. Yes, especially in Vietnam, accounting style and auditing and practice, and those kind of it is very important from the perspective of the international and global investors' perspective. So that having more integrity and sustainable management system is very much important.
Yeah, just one more recommendation is we ask issuers to start attending conferences in the US a lot earlier. Where a lot of companies do is they get so exhausted in their IPO that they forget that they have to attend those conferences. So do that much before and start meeting those investors. And what this does is when you meet those investors early on, you get feedback on how they view your company as opposed to your peers in the US. And they give you that meaningful feedback so you can go back and work on that strategy and then come back and ask for those investments. What it also does is there are certain sell side who attends these conferences, so they kind of cover your stock once you attend these. And again, not everyone would be invited to, let's say, the Goldman's or the Morgan's conference of the world, but there are certain tier 2, tier 3 conferences which could be useful.
Let me move into the listing requirements and what investor expectations are. So why don't we start off with what are the key regulatory requirements and prerequisites in order for a company to list on your exchange? Let's start with Tokyo.
Mainly from the perspective of us and startups, we have a three market segments. First one is a prime market for the blue chip, and standard for SMEs, and growth market for startups. And growth market is a major market segment for us and startups. And in that market, we have only few listing requirements, such like units and shareholder numbers, very much easier to clear. But on the other hand, we need a very high level of integrity, so that we need a steady corporate governance system and a disclosure system. And yes, and it is a very good thing. It is a very much important thing.
On a very high level, US IPO is a disclosure-based regime. You meet the standards, you get listed. There are certain regulatory prerequisites for that. One is the corporate governance standard, which is majority of board members must be independent. Audit, compensation, and nomination committees needs to be formed. Companies must adopt a code of conduct. Annual meetings and shareholder votings are required. You need to comply with the SEC regulations as you go ahead, which includes ongoing reporting such as 10K, 10Q, 8K, and so forth. One of the other aspects is registration with the SEC. So if you're a foreign issuer, you need to file with as an F1 filing. If you're a local US, you need to file as an S1 filing. You just need to get a clearance from SEC. And this is, again, a huge task. It takes a lot of time and effort. And the SEC lawyers are there to help companies go through that 300, 400-page document, which includes all the details. Then there are internal controls in terms of regulatory, which the companies need to demonstrate their financial reporting. There are certain operational prerequisites as well. So business viability, which is need to have a viable business plan and operating history. This gets challenging with some of the small cap, micro cap companies sometimes. But that's the prerequisite in order to get listed. There are certain shareholder requirements as well, so you need to have at least 1 to 2 million shareholders. The round lot of shareholders are at least 300 to 400 as well. And then lastly, it's the market makers. So the 3 market makers needed to list on the market.
While I got you online now, I'm interested, NASDAQ recently changed the rules. And for those companies that don't meet the $750,000 income standard, they now have to raise $15 million, correct? Why did NASDAQ make the change, and what's behind it?
Yeah, I was hoping you didn't ask that question, but okay.
You were hoping I didn't ask the question?
I think the most important thing here is we want quality companies to come to our market. The very ethos that NASDAQ is successful is because companies listed on the market are successful. We are not successful if the companies are not successful. So when our compliance team and our teams looked at those companies who are not trading well, some of those companies were not profitable, some of them were not viable business plan. Such companies don't help the market. They don't trade well, there's less liquidity, investors lose money, there's a bit of a confidence shakeup, and hence our team is constantly doing that work to acknowledge what is that right structure, what is that right raise that company needs to come to the market and become successful. And again, 15 million is low bar anyway. I wouldn't recommend a company raising less than 15 million to go out and achieve a lot of it. I know you have your views on that as well, but I don't see anyone.
Well, you make the rules, we just follow them.
True.
For me, Vietnam has been one of the most interesting markets, and as you've heard today, certainly a growing market. But the other side is that we actually haven't seen that many companies actually go public on the exchange. As to you, aside from VinFast, right, are there any other Vietnamese companies that have listed, like on the TSC? As we heard, Japan is one of the principal investors, along with Singapore, into Vietnam. So can both of you give us some insight into perhaps some of the other companies that are looking to list from Vietnam?
Okay. As you may know, In 2021, we have one Vietnamese company listed in Tokyo Stock Exchange. Yes, Mr. Meey, who are running in the hybrid technologies, that was installation in Japan in the past, and but he could achieve a successful IPO in Japan in 2021. That's one case. And just after the COVID, we just started a new initiative named TSC Asia Startup Hub. That is a supporting program to make a Japan-related business for the SN startup. Because just after the COVID, Hong Kong was a leading IPO destination in Asia in the past. But at this moment, Hong Kong's mainlandization had a very big difficulties in Asian startups. So right now, many startups are looking at the Tokyo Stock Exchange as a fund-related destination at this moment. But most of them doesn't have enough Japan-related business. So right now, as a stock exchange, we have just started a new initiative, TSC Asia Startup Hub, to support, to make a Japan-related business. So we are trying to make some large corporate listed companies and auditing firms and securities brokers and potential IPO, potential investors and shareholders and so on. Yes. And we have just announced 14 startups, supported startups in last September. And in that list, we have one Vietnam company as a pipeline. They are planning to IPO in the Tokyo market in the coming few years. Yes, now we are supporting to make a more successful business development with the Japanese companies in Japan.
Yes, so we are obviously very proud to have VinFast listed on our market. We're talking to a few more companies in the region, and we are fairly confident we'll have a few more companies listed with us in the future. But from a PE VC perspective, and this is a global view, we expect venture capital investment to increase in 2025. Some prominent crossover investors have demonstrated a renewed willingness to lead new later stage investments, and many opportunities exist for investment into companies waiting to IPO. And an increased listings should also loosen the grip on that capital. Now, just on the Vietnamese market in general, and I guess Vinny and others covered this really well, it's the people which makes it special. 100+ million population, young ones, 33, 34 of an average age. We see the vibe, we see the energy and the skill and the talent that Vietnam offers, just unmatched to anywhere else. So longer term, we do see a lot of prospects. We do see a lot of IPOs coming from this region.
Being an accountant, I guess I have kind of a different view on things, or at least an unusual view. And for me, in order for the market here to really take hold, this is actually sort of like gambling. It is gambling. And gamblers typically like to bet into win streaks. And I think one of the things that would be enormously helpful for the Vietnamese market is to have 2 or 3 winners, companies that go public and actually trade up 6 months later. And I think when you see that, at that point is when I think you're going to start to attract much, much more investor capital.
Absolutely agree with that. And I think there are clear benefits on both sides. Companies in Vietnam would benefit from the global capital, which comes from the US specifically, and at the same time, US investors get diversification in their portfolio. 10 years ago, investors in the US did not have an opportunity to invest here. Now we have Grab, VinFast, C Group. There are plenty of choices here, which makes it interesting for US investors to diversify as well.
I want to move topics now. As the private companies understand, there's many different ways to achieve liquidity. SPACs, direct listings, and what we call traditional IPOs. So I want to move over and give them some color on these topics and how you feel about it, especially SPACs, which has been an incredibly hot topic over the last few years. So among the SPAC direct listings and traditional IPOs, what's working in the current global market right now? And which approach do you think is most suitable for these emerging market companies?
Yes, from Japan side, at this moment in Japan, we don't have SPAC IPO system in Japan at this moment.
Maybe actually, I'm sorry to interrupt, maybe some of you in the audience, maybe you're not familiar with what a SPAC is, but it's referred to as a special purpose acquisition corp. And in a SPAC, you're essentially raising money for a future transaction where an investor actually has the ability to withdraw his money. So essentially, I'm telling you that I have an idea that I can find a company like this, and you're going to give me your money. It goes into a trust account, and when I find that investment, I explain it to you. If you want to participate, you can. If you don't, you can take your money and go back. It's very difficult to get SPAC deals done without what we call pipes, which is the institutional money that comes alongside that. So I just wanted to give the audience a little color on what a SPAC is, because I would imagine many of you have not heard it before. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Thank you. Yeah, as I mentioned, at this moment in Japan, we do not have an IPO, SPAC IPO system at this moment. And because in the case of an IPO by using the SPAC system, sometimes stock price fall down totally. And that's why the Japanese regulator is carefully watching that SPAC system. So that at this moment, we do not have. But when I mentioned that, at this moment, the speediness is important for the startup management, and the corporate management speed is very much important for the startups. So that we understand that shorten the preferring the period for the IPO is very much important.
Yes, these are